Because of life's pressures that had no solution, these people wanted to end everything together. The girl in the red coat received a notice and hurried to the scene. When she arrived, she quickly pulled the tube from the car's exhaust, then opened the car door, letting the suffocating gas escape. Without hesitation, she sat in the car and took them on a thrilling experience. The car kept driving until the fuel hit empty, but for some reason, it still wouldn't stop. The car continued to speed madly on the highway. The people inside became terrified and panicked, crying for help. Some of them gradually regained their senses. Standing at the edge between life and death made them crave to live. The desire to survive made them scream and beg her to stop car, but the girl drove even faster. She suddenly spun the car 180 degrees. The car stopped at the edge of a broken bridge, hanging in midair, causing the people inside to scream in fear. The negative energy of the people in the car began to decrease. At that moment, she calmly walked away from the scene. Stopping people with extreme thoughts like that was the job of Kurion. Kurion was a messenger from hell. She and her assistant Ryonggu used an app to check people's negativity index. The higher the index, the higher the chance they would leave this life on their own. Kurion's crisis management team was the workplace of the hell messengers. Their job was to save the lives of these people. Meanwhile, the captain of the human affairs team was named Park Jung-gil. He was looking at a man covered in wounds with a cold and commanding gaze. The man looked at that handsome face, then suddenly became agitated and charged at him with a knife. The man was easily taken down by Jung-gil. It turned out that he was already a soul. Jung-gil had come to take him away. At the same time, Joon Woong was standing on a bridge, intending to leave this world. Suddenly, he encountered a homeless man who was also about to end his life. This startled him, and he no longer wanted to go through with his previous intention and ran away. But at the very last moment, he came back to stop the man's action. Right at that moment, a sound suddenly rang out, and Kurion kicked both of them away. Joon Woong angrily wanted to argue with her, but while the two were arguing, the man took the chance to jump down. Joon Woong tried to stop him, but unexpectedly, he also fell along with the man. When he woke up, he realized he was still alive, but Joon Woong was shocked when he saw that his hands had become transparent. Turning around, Joon Woong found himself lying on a hospital bed. Through the transparent glass window, he saw Kurion standing outside the door looking in at him. Joon Woong continuously lashed out at her with words, but she only snapped her fingers, and his mouth could no longer speak. When Joon Woong showed that he wouldn't make noise anymore, Kurion finally let it go. Then, she held up her employee ID card. Written on it was that she was a messenger from hell, and also the team leader of the Soul Management Team. Kurion said he wasn't dead yet, but it would take 3 more years before he woke up. To make up for the mistake in her work, she would send Joon Woong into another body. After that, she took him to Jumadeon Corporation, the busiest and most high-end company in the underworld, so that the superiors could arrange his future matters. The two of them entered a mysterious cave. When they reached the end of the cave, Kurion opened a door, and a new world with dazzling lights appeared before their eyes. She led him to meet the Jade Emperor. Joon Woong was curious about what the Jade Emperor looked like. Suddenly, a woman came over and offered him a carton of milk. Joon Woong obediently accepted it and hurriedly asked about the appearance of the Jade Emperor. Unexpectedly, right after that, the woman turned around and transformed into the Jade Emperor of Jumado. She gave him a choice. The first option was that he would remain in a coma and wake up after 3 years. The second option was that he could work for 6 months and then wake up. But Joon Woong's answer surprised her, because he thought he was dreaming and didn't want to work for her. Seeing that, the Jade Emperor had no choice but to use magic to make his soul enter his body. Joon Woong saw his mother sitting in despair next to him, while he himself couldn't move. After being frightened, Joon Woong agreed to become an underworld messenger. The Jumadown Corporation was divided into many different departments. The Soul Escort team was led by Jung-gil. This was the place that gathered all the elite talents in Jumadown. Joon Woong thought he would be assigned to a department worthy of his good looks, but in the end, he was assigned to the department that saved people who wanted to leave this world on their own. A department that had extremely few members. On his first day at work, Joon Woong witnessed Kurion's abilities. A delivery man, while trying to avoid a pedestrian, crashed his vehicle. The motorcycle was speeding toward a girl. Suddenly, Kurion snapped her fingers, causing everything to freeze. Then she stood in front of the girl and waved her hand, changing the direction of the motorcycle. The girl who was saved was quite special. She had a high index of wanting to leave this world. There was a comic book related to school violence that made her feel anxious and troubled. The content in the comic seemed to be connected to her past. Kurion realized that if they wanted to save this girl, they had to resolve her past. Kurion unlocked the girl's memories using the memory key. Then she and Joon Woong went to a classroom. The girl in the memory was crying while erasing her name that had been written all over the board. Because of the girl's emotional agitation, the space suddenly cracked apart. Kurion and Joon Woong hurriedly ran into another space. They arrived at the girl's house. She was repeatedly banging her head against the wall. Right after that, the space suddenly transformed. The two of them urgently searched for the entrance to the next space. But no matter where they went, the space remained extremely unstable. It wasn't until they were standing on a high-speed train that they finally saw the girl's smile. But when the train entered a tunnel, the headlights started flickering repeatedly, and the space shifted again. They quickly moved to the next location. They discovered that the girl, Young Jin, was a classmate of the artist Hwang Jae. At a time when Hwang Jae was feeling unhappy, she overheard the cheerful conversation between Young Jin and her friend. Hwang Jae, who had always been overbearing at school, dragged Young Jin into an alley along with her gang to beat her. They even created a game for her. Hwang Jae picked up the pen that had fallen on the ground and then continuously clicked the pen. The next day, when Young Jin came to class and opened her locker, it was filled with trash and vulgar, insulting words. In the days that followed, every time Hwang Jae clicked pen, Young Jin was forced to smile. She smiled as if she was about to cry, but they still didn't stop. They even poured a bag of milk over Young Jin. When Jung Min heard that Young Jin was being bullied, she brought Young Jin to the upper floor. Jung Min told Young Jin to report what happened to their homeroom teacher, but she was too afraid and refused. Not long after, Hwang Jae came to the place. She grabbed Jung Min by the neck to threaten Young Jin. If she dared to speak out about the bullying, then the one who would be bullied next would be Jung Min. Young Jin knew exactly what that feeling was like. She wanted to beg Hwang Jae to spare her friend, so she knelt down and apologized to her. She held the pen in her hand and laughed unconsciously. Seeing that, Hwang Jae was satisfied and walked away. Not long after that, in a small alley, Hwang Jae and the schoolgirl who had poured milk on Young Jin physically assaulted her. Joon Woong and Kurion had been standing in the memory space of Young Jin the entire time, but they couldn't interfere with what happened in the memory. If they intervened, they would be discovered by the people in the memory and get trapped in that world. Joon Woong witnessed Young Jin being bullied and couldn't hold back. He stepped forward to protect her. As expected, the mirror shattered and the space behind it cracked like broken glass. Seeing that, Kurion quickly pulled Joon Woong and ran. They had to find the door back before the entire memory space collapsed. One by one, the spaces behind them transformed and shattered. After passing through several scenes, they finally found the door of the high-speed train, which brought them back to reality. Young Jin, who had once been bullied, had now become a screenwriter for a broadcasting station. She was determined to live happily, but the appearance of one person pushed her into crisis. The person she was interviewing that day was Hwang Jae. Hwang Jae was someone who had once bullied others at school, but now she had become a comic artist who drew anti-school violence stories. She had even published a series related to school violence. The bully had forgotten all her wrongdoings, but the victim always remembered what she had gone through. After the interview ended, Young Jin called her producer, hoping to cancel the airing of the program. She even told him that she had been bullied by Hwang Jae. The producer didn't agree and even scolded her. Unexpectedly at that moment, Hwang Jae was already standing behind her. She kept insulting Young Jin and repeatedly clicked the pen to provoke her. Unable to endure the torment, Young Jin went up to the rooftop. Her negativity index had reached 92%. She stood at the edge of the rooftop, leaning forward, intending to jump. She wanted to end all her unhappiness this way. As Young Jin jumped, beautiful scenes from her life suddenly flashed through her mind. Perhaps in the moment between life and death, what people think of is always the truest and most beautiful. She slowly closed her eyes and said that she didn't want to die, and that was exactly the sentence Kurion had been waiting for. She teleported to stand beneath Young Jin. At that moment, Young Jin had already felt the terrifying sensation of jumping off a building. She looked at Kurion with a doubtful gaze. Kurion blamed herself, saying she shouldn't have worn high heels to save someone. Then she asked Young Jin how it felt when she was falling. Young Jin remained silent and lowered her head. Kurion sincerely gave her words of advice, but the data on the monitoring system still showed that she hadn't truly escaped the danger zone. Fortunately, Joon Woong had found a movie star she liked. He successfully made Young Jin laugh. Her negativity index dropped by 20%. In the end, she returned to normal, no longer making him worry. After that, Kurion went to find Hwang Jae. She grabbed her by the hair and choked her with one hand. Kurion forced her to feel Young Jin's pain. After saying that, she threw the bully to the ground. Then, Hwang Jae was thrown into the scene where Young Jin had been bullied. At that moment, she had to endure the pain that Young Jin had experienced. Hwang Jae realized the mistakes she had made. She kept begging Kurion to forgive her once, but the punishment for her was not over yet. The broadcasting station reported that Hwang Jae had been a school bully. She was harshly criticized by many strangers. The other two were laughing and chatting in the cafeteria. cafeteria. But right after that, they were taught a lesson by Kurion using magic. Kurion had violated the rules because she had arbitrarily stopped time, disrupting the balance of life and death. The Jade Emperor decided to punish Kurion. She banned her from using magic for 1 month. During this time, she was absolutely forbidden from using any magical powers. If she disobeyed, she would be harmed by her own magic. Hearing this, Joon Woong was shocked and speechless. He hurried out to a cafe to buy a drink for Kurion. Unexpectedly, he saw a spirit floating through a wall. He quickly covered his face and pretended not to see it, but the spirit still followed him and wouldn't leave. Kurion took Unjin to the hospital, but they couldn't find any trace of her. They ran outside to search and ended up encountering Joon Gil. Since Kurion no longer had her powers, she had no choice but to lead her teammates to run away. But no matter how they ran, they couldn't escape from Joon Gil. Eventually, they ran into the hospital, but Kurion intentionally used her magic and began to suffer its backlash. When Joon Gil found Unjin, Ryung-gu risked everything and rushed forward to stop him. Because of that, he had to confront Joon Gil. 100 years ago, Joon Gil had joined the Jumadeong organization simply because he was an exceptionally rare talent. At that time, he was very obedient. No one expected that today he would dare to rebel, but Ryung-gu was no match for him. At the critical moment, Kurion arrived just in time to support Ryung-gu, but the difference in strength between the two sides was significant. Joon Gil would not give any chance to a dangerous organization. It wasn't until Kurion spoke up that she, despite the danger, sought an opportunity to stay in the human world for another half day. However, Joon Gil only agreed to let her save people within 2 hours. She reluctantly accepted his decision. Their pact was formed, and no one had the right to break it. But that pact meant that, no matter what request Joon Gil made in the future, Kurion would have to comply. Ryung-gu didn't understand why she had to do that. Even if the organization was facing the risk of being disbanded, Kurion still cared more about Unjin's life, because the moment she was forced to die had passed 100 years ago. Yet it continued to cause her pain every time she remembered it. Suddenly, Joon Woong's phone gave a notification. Unjin's resentment had reached its peak. At that moment, Unjin was walking up the stairs, her mind repeatedly filled with scenes of her father painfully scolding and driving her away, the sudden death of her uncle's family, and in the end, her own death while trying to save her fiancé, Woo Jin. These painful events had become unforgettable memories in her short life. Back in the present, Woo Jin was standing at a high place, just one step down, and he would be freed from his fate. But Kurion arrived in time. The moment he jumped, Kurion used her powers to pull him back up. Kurion was willing to face the risk of death. She still used all her strength so that Unjin and Woo Jin could meet one last time. The traumas of the past might take a lifetime to heal, but a single moment of happiness could save a person's life. It was all the most beautiful arrangement. Fate had allowed them to meet once more. When the phone displayed that Woo Jin had entered a safe state, Kurion collapsed. After that, Woo Jin continued to live happily and healthily, and he would never forget the girl who had loved him more than herself. Joon Woong asked Kurion what kind of belief had kept them going in this line of work. A group of hackers had dared to mess with the entire underworld's network system. This forced the staff at Jumadeong to register. The negative index in the employees' app of the danger team only showed phone numbers and addresses. Kurion had no choice but to bring along 2 others pretending to be interns. They went to the company at the address shown in the system to apply for a job. The interviewer was a middle-aged man, the team leader of Chimo Company. He squinted at Kurion and even asked her how tall she was and how much she weighed. He also said that the company had certain appearance requirements for employees. Deep down, Kurion looked down on this man, but in order to find the negative person, she had to endure it. The app on the phone showed that the person wanted to leave in April. Kurion told Ryung-gu to go to the team leader's office to look for information about this person. Through observation, they identified that the person about to voluntarily leave the world was one of 4 people: Hwang Song, Kim Sang-si, Shin Tena, and Lee Sang-hee. Lee Sang-hee was a working housewife. Because she had to take care of her daughter, she often arrived late and was frequently reminded by the team leader. Kurion saw her answer a phone call and then hurriedly leave the company, so she followed. Her husband was busy with school and couldn't pick up their child, and she also had to leave a meeting. Lee Sang-hee felt extremely troubled and helpless. Kurion proactively offered to look after her daughter so she could attend the meeting first. Meanwhile, Joon Woong was keeping an eye on Hwang Song. While she was buying coffee, people around her started gossiping about her body. The unpleasant comments made others feel uncomfortable. Joon Woong noticed her negative index rising continuously and felt that Hwang Song showed signs of wanting to end her life voluntarily. During a meal, the team leader grabbed food from her plate without washing his hands. He licked his fingers and said Hwang Song was too fat and shouldn't eat so much. He also emphasized that she should pay attention to her appearance. The team leader mocked shocked her, saying that no man would like someone as fat as her. Hwang Sung remained silent and said nothing. After Ryunggu talked with Kim Sang-sik, he felt that although Sang-sik's life was currently difficult, he had his own plans. This didn't match the behavior of someone who was about to voluntarily leave the world. Kurion stayed with Lee Sang-hee's daughter. Kurion felt that she was a mother full of positive energy. She loved her daughter and was enthusiastic about her work. This also didn't match the behavior of someone about to voluntarily leave the world. Moreover, at the company, Lee Sang-hee was a woman admired by everyone, so she had no reason to do anything negative. Only Hwang Sung was mocked about her body, no matter where she stood. Joon Woong felt that the one who would voluntarily leave the world seemed to be her, so Kurion's team focused all their attention on Hwang Sung. The team leader found all kinds of reasons every day to bully her. At those times, Hwang Sung only lowered her head like a child who had made a mistake. During a meal, Kurion observed her reactions. They began to feel that the one who intended to leave the world was not Hwang Sung, but Shin Tena. Even though she said it had been a long time since she last ate beef and that the beef looked delicious, Shin Tena cut the meat into very small pieces. After eating just a little, she put her utensils down and went to the restroom to vomit the beef out. Kurion didn't know why Shin Tena treated herself that way. At the cafe, Shin Tena was gossiped about by people around her. The harsh words made her extremely furious. Rengu saw her index continuously rising in the app. Kurion felt that something had happened to Shin Tena. Perhaps today, during the company's group meal, the team leader encouraged Shin Tena to eat something. He said that a girl as skinny as her looked lifeless. After saying that, he commented that Hwang Sung was already too fat and should eat less. Then the team leader squinted at Kurion and creepily said that a figure like hers was just right. At that moment, Joon Woong couldn't hold it in anymore and stuffed food into the team leader's mouth. The co-workers were all looking at Shin Tena. They told her that she had gotten skinnier lately and that she should eat more. After hearing those words, she started hallucinating. Shin Tena felt like her co-workers were mocking her, so she ran out of the restaurant. Kurion and the other two chased after her, but they couldn't find any trace of Shin Tena. At that moment, the Jumadong network system returned to normal, but Shin Tena had almost reached her limit. She ran home and turned on the gas valve. She had broken down to the point where she wanted to end everything. Just then, Joon Woong also arrived at her home. He opened the door to her room and quickly shut off the gas valve. Then he carried Shin Tena, who had collapsed on the floor, to the hospital. Kurion felt that Joon Woong should be given a chance to show what he could do to save someone in his own way. Joon Woong asked Shin Tena, who was lying in the hospital bed, why she wanted to die. But Shin Tena herself didn't know why she wanted to voluntarily leave the world. He didn't understand why she wanted to be so thin that she had to force herself to vomit. Shin Tena told him a secret she had always tried to hide. She said that she used to be very fat and was mocked by her classmates. They called her a fat pig. She became the target of ridicule among her peers. No matter when, those humiliating words kept echoing in her ears. The harsh words from school days could affect a person for a lifetime. Gradually, she fell into despair. But because she was too fat, even ending her own life wasn't easy. From that point on, she became determined to vomit out her food so she could become thinner. Now, she had indeed become thinner, but she still couldn't escape other people's gossip. Women envied her slim body, while men criticized her for being nothing but skin and bones. Shin Tena wanted to gain weight, but every time she remembered her past self, she couldn't stand it and ended up vomiting all the food out again. These things left her not knowing how to face life. Joon Woong told Shin Tena that his younger sister had also gone through something similar. After she broke up with her boyfriend, she couldn't control her weight. At first, she didn't care about it, but gradually, she also couldn't stand the judgment of others. Joon Woong's younger sister started to become sensitive. She locked herself in her room and refused to eat or drink. His sister was very similar to Shin Tena, but the difference was that Shin Tena had been subjected to people's judgment since she was young. Gradually, it was as if she had been trapped, surrounded by criticism and ridicule from others. Those things made her feel like she couldn't escape. Even though Joon Woong had experienced this, he asked Shin Tena if she had ever thought that it was she herself who caused her own suffering. He advised Shin Tena not to overdo her weight loss, because the body belongs to oneself, and health is the most important thing. That sentence awakened Shin Tena. The strangers pointing fingers at her gradually disappeared, but Shin Tena didn't know how to open the door of that prison cell. At that moment, a version of herself appeared and pointed at her own hand. Turns out the key to freedom had always been in her hand. At that moment, Shin Tena's negative index returned to a normal level. Kurion turned and walked away. The team leader had arranged to meet her on the balcony to do something indecent. She couldn't tolerate this man any longer, so she stepped onto the balcony. She wanted to return all the anger she had held in during this time back to him. Kurion gave him him a painful beating. After hitting the team leader, she laid down a rule for him. If he mocked anyone again, he would get diarrhea. After saying that, she turned and walked away. The team leader didn't believe it and chased after Kurion, intending to argue. As a result, after taking just a few steps, the team leader immediately had diarrhea. After recovering, Shin Tena asked Wang Song how she managed to quickly regain her smile when others commented on her body. Wang Song sincerely replied that, in fact, she didn't feel very happy when she heard those criticisms, but she was genuinely satisfied with her body, so she was able to recover her optimism quickly. When she was young, Wang Song was so skinny that she was just skin and bones. After falling seriously ill and recovering, she came to a realization that since people only live once, we should ignore what others say. If we like eating something, then we should eat it. As long as she was healthy and living well, that was enough for her. She didn't care much about body standards. Then, Wang Song gave Shin Tena a dining utensil set. Shin Tena had overcome the trauma in her heart, so she accepted it. She tried eating a piece of cake, then gently smiled and said the flavor was delicious. Meanwhile, Joon Woong looked at his certificate as a reaper. He asked why. This time, Kurion let him handle it on his own. Kurion replied that she felt he was a perfect fit for it. This was the first time in Joon Woong's life that he had saved someone's life, so he found life to be truly meaningful. He happily took his employee ID card and went to check in. But elsewhere, the Jade Emperor of the Jumadong Company still didn't know the system had been restored, so she personally signed the documents. The Jade Emperor despised the nasty hackers. At that moment, Jung Gil brought over some documents that needed to be signed. Even Reapers here could create nightmares. Grim Reaper Jung Gil was being disturbed by nightmares. He dreamt that his arm was slashed with a blade, causing blood to cover his body. His face was also covered in blood. He walked slowly down the street when he was suddenly stopped by someone. Jung Gil awoke from the nightmare. His mind was in a panic, so he hurried to find the Jade Emperor to ask for an interpretation. He wanted to know what had happened that caused him such pain. The Jade Emperor replied that she didn't know either, because only he could truly understand himself. Jung Gil wanted to know what had happened in his past life. He entered the records room to look up his own name, but the staff told him that Jung Gil's past life had been locked, and only the great Jade Emperor had the authority to open it. Jung Gil curiously asked if there was anyone else whose past life was also locked. The staff said there was one other person. Jung Gil wondered what kind of relationship he had with Kurion in a past life, and why she appeared in his nightmares. At that moment, a newcomer greeted him. Her name was Hye-won. She was a cheerful and open-minded girl, but her past life had been extremely tragic. The first person she ever escorted had also gone through something similar. Elsewhere, the Jade Emperor introduced Hye-won to Kurion. She said that Hye-won would work with the Danger Team to complete a rescue mission, as well as special escort assignment. Kurion brought Kim Hye-won into the office. Joon Woong became excited when he saw the newcomer reporting in, but this made a coworker nearby tease him, saying that he forgot the old. When meeting someone new, Joon Woong only smiled and didn't say anything. This time, the person the Danger Team needed to save was Bak Hee, and the person Hye-won had to escort was Jong Mun. Before Jong Mun passed away, she wished to see Bak Hee one last time. Hearing this, Joon Woong wondered what kind of relationship they had. Bak Hee had lived a fulfilling life. Although she was born during the time of the war against Japan, she still lived peacefully. When Kurion saw the old lady, she was cleaning a statue of a young woman on the street. She explained to Kurion that a long time ago, Bak Hee had always been searching for a childhood companion named Jin Hee. One day, she suddenly saw a photo in her grandchild's printed materials. The girl in that photo was the very person Bak Hee had struggled so hard to find. She couldn't imagine what kind of suffering Jin Hee had endured. Every time Bak Hee saw that statue of the young woman, she imagined it as Jin Hee. Because of that, she felt very guilty toward her friend. She asked Kurion whether that person was still alive. Kurion told her that Jin Hee had already passed away long ago. Upon hearing that, Bak Hee felt as though the last bit of courage that had kept her alive until now had disappeared. Kurion told her that in the Youth Women's Brigade back then, there had also been a woman named Jong Mun. Now, Jong Mun was about to pass away, and she really wished to meet Bak Hee to do something, but Bak Hee felt that back then, she had pushed Jin Hee into the hands of terrible people, so she had no right to meet someone who had suffered the same fate as Jin Hee. Kurion told her that Jong Mun didn't have much time left, and because she wanted to meet the person named Bak Hee, whom Jin Hee used to often talk about, she had relied on that strong desire to stay alive until now. Driven by the powerful will within her, Bak Hee finally stood before Jong Mun's hospital bed. When she saw the mark on Jong Mun's arm, she felt heartbroken. She apologetically said to Jong Mun that back then, she had pushed Jin Hee into that inhumane military base. Bak Hee deeply regretted having committed an unforgivable sin. In the past, Bak Bak Hee and Jin Hee had been as close as sisters. They grew up together. One day, Jin Hee's father fell seriously ill. Her family was poor and couldn't afford treatment. The sudden misfortune made her already struggling family even more desperate. Bak Hee happened to read a news article in the paper. It said that the Red Army's factory was recruiting workers. She heard from a teacher that the conditions there were very good. Although Jin Hee would have to work for a few years, she would receive a large amount of money afterward. That made Jin Hee decide to go work at the factory. Before she left, Bak Hee gave her a scarf and told her to take good care of herself. Neither of them knew that would be the last time they ever saw each other. In her youth, Jin Hee experienced a living hell filled with humiliation and cruelty. When the Korean War entered its final stage of rescue efforts, Jin Hee received an order from the national forces. She sacrificed herself so others could escape, but when Jong Mun escaped and returned to her hometown, she found that the home she had always longed for no longer existed. Her parents had died from illness brought on by her disappearance. On top of that, the villagers treated her coldly. The insults they hurled at her were like thousands of blades piercing straight into her heart. This pain was even greater than what she had suffered in the military. In the end, she left her hometown and chose to live alone. Until one day, Jong Moon saw a woman on television exposing the crimes of the Japanese soldiers, and the public began to better understand revolutionary women like her. More and more people began to speak up in their defense. She decided to speak out as well, because they were victims. Their request was very simple. They only wanted Japan to make a public apology and admit the mistakes of the past that would allow the deceased to rest in peace and bring peace of mind to the living. However, the Japanese government didn't care about that at all. If Jong Mun were to die just like that, she would feel very guilty toward Jin Hee. At that moment, Joon Woong and Jin Hee were standing outside the hospital room. Kurion decided to let her and Jong Mun meet so that the old woman would no longer feel guilty and could continue living well. When Bak Hee saw Jin Hee, she truly couldn't believe that she could still see a friend who had already died. Jin Hee said that because back then she had seen Jong Gil rescue them from the hands of the Japanese Reaper, she also wanted to become a Reaper. Jin Hee hadn't been able to live alongside her comrades, so after death, she wanted to send them off on their final journey. Bak Hee burst into tears and embraced Jin Hee. The longing and guilt that had built up over so many years made her apologize again and again, but Jin Hee didn't blame her because she hadn't done anything wrong. Jin Hee said that seeing Bak Hee living happily made her feel at ease. Kurion told everyone to come to the hospital room. When Jong Mun saw Joon Woong, she remembered the person who had saved them in the forest. In his past life, he had been deeply grateful to them. It was because of people like them who had continued to be strong that he hadn't lost motivation and hope. At that moment, Joon Woong advised her to let go of the past. The people of later generations would help her carry that burden. They would shoulder the unfinished mission so that she could rest in peace. When Jong Mun finally met the person she had always felt guilty toward, the scars on Jin Hee's body still caused her deep pain. She was grateful for everything Jin Hee had done for her, but she hated herself for not being able to do anything, for only being able to watch Jin Hee get killed. Jin Hee advised her to let go of that heavy past. She would take her to a place where it was spring all year round. Jong Mun had lived a lonely life, and now, at the end of it, she finally smiled because she was going to a place filled with warm spring sunlight. Returning home together with her friends, they played joyful games together, and everyone wore bright, happy smiles. Reapers of the underworld only had one day off a year, and that was the anniversary of their own death. After finishing work, Kurion drank alone at a bar because tomorrow was her day off. Joon Woong, worried about her, quietly protected her from a distance. He looked at the red thread on her wrist and was very curious to know why Kurion had wanted to cut her thread of fate. Joon Woong checked her depression index, and the result was 100%, so he became very concerned about her. Roong-gu said that Reapers only had one day off a year, and that was the anniversary of their death. Of course, on that day, her mood would be very bad. Joon Woong went to see the Jade Emperor to ask whether Kurion's suicide in the past had anything to do with Jong Gil. The Jade Emperor asked Joon Woong what Kurion was to him. He replied that first, he thought she was very difficult and hard to approach, but now he saw her as very capable. Sometimes he even wanted to be like Kurion. Joon Woong wanted to use all his strength to help her. The Jade Emperor saw that he really wanted to understand Kurion's emotional wounds, so she decided to show him Kurion's past life from 400 years ago. In her past life, Kurion had been a wealthy young lady, but she disliked staying at home. She preferred going into the forest to hunt like a man. In that same forest, there was a young man who also hunted. Perhaps their fate began with an accident. One day, the young man was bitten by a snake. Fortunately, he was rescued by Kurion and some villagers. Afterward, to repay them, he hunted many animals and gifted them. Over time, the two gradually developed developed feelings for each other. When Kurion reached the age for marriage, her father declared that she was already betrothed before birth. Upon learning that she would have to marry a stranger, she left her father's house because she already loved someone else and decided to call off the arranged engagement. But at the moment the marriage door opened, Kurion was surprised to discover that the man she was to wed was the very person she loved, Joon Gil. They both liked each other. Kurion loved jewelry, and while she was choosing some pieces, Joon Gil applied a touch of red eyeshadow to her eyelids. He said the color suited her. Because of this, for more than 400 years, Kurion continued to wear the eyeshadow color that Joon Gil liked. After Joon Gil passed the military examination with the 5 senses, they married. Kurion looked at him overflowing with happiness. As a married couple, they strolled the streets. Joon Gil, doting on his wife, personally selected a piece of jewelry for her. At that time, the borderlands sent news that enemy forces were attacking their country. Joon Gil hurried to the front line. After he left, the enemy ambushed their village. Kurion fought back bravely, but because she was alone, she was captured by the enemy. After returning, Joon Gil immediately chased after his wife upon learning she had been taken, but by then, Kurion had already been escorted to the distant Manzi region. She told Gok Jan, who was crying in front of her, that they would definitely make it back. That night, when Kurion saw poisonous grass by the roadside, she whispered to Gok Jan that they would be going home soon. Meanwhile, Joon Gil pursued his wife through the night, killing several Manzi along the way. One of the people Joon Gil rescued said that thousands of women had been taken by the Manzi. On the other side, Kurion carefully placed the poisonous grass into the guards' food. Not long after, the entire group of guards was poisoned and died. Once they collapsed, she immediately led everyone in an escape. When Joon Gil arrived and saw the ground littered with the guards' corpses and scattered ropes, he knew they had escaped. At that time, Kurion kept leading everyone to flee, not daring to stop. After several days of exhausting travel, they finally reached their homeland. They were overjoyed, thinking they had been saved, but when Kurion's group reached the city gates, they were stopped by the soldiers. Because they had been captured by the Manzi, they were considered unclean and forbidden to return to their country. Kurion and the others had endured countless hardships to come back, but their homeland rejected them. She was not afraid of death and kept moving forward. Just as the soldier raised his sword to strike her, Joon Gil arrived in time and declared that Kurion was his wife, and he would not allow anyone to harm her. Joon Gil finally found Kurion, but they could not return to the life they once had. Everyone looked at her with disdain. They said she had no shame. At first, Kurion endured it, but Joon Gil's mother believed the rumors. She thought that Kurion had been defiled, which would damage the family's honor. So she wanted to find another wife for Joon Gil to bear heirs. Of course, Joon Gil firmly refused. One day, he heard someone say that Kurion was pregnant with Manzi's child. Immediately, he drew his sword, making the man tremble in fear and kneel to beg for mercy. His mother appeared and stopped him, but even as they left, they still wore expressions of contempt. Seeing this, Joon Gil unsheathed his sword, intending to chase after them, but his wife held him back. The gossip outside made Kurion deeply saddened, but what she never expected was that her mother-in-law would hand her a knife. The woman told her to choose death to preserve the family's honor and Joon Gil's future. One day, while walking down the street, Kurion was insulted by the townspeople, and she could no longer endure it. She criticized the men who stayed home to scorn a woman instead of going to fight the enemy. Her words enraged them, and they threw stones at her in anger. Gok Jan shielded Kurion to protect her, but by the time she was stoned to death, the mob, now frightened, scattered. Kurion, overwhelmed by unbearable pressure, wanted to end her life to escape the torment, but Joon Gil could never let his wife leave him. Heartbroken to see the woman he loved suffer such psychological torment, he comforted her, saying the rumors would soon stop. Then, he turned against the very people he had once risked his life to protect. Anyone who dared speak ill of Kurion, he would kill. Yet this was not what Kurion wanted. Seeing Joon Gil become a murderer for her sake only made her feel like a curse. In the end, she chose to take her own life to protect her husband's future and the family's honor. When Joon Gil walked home like a lost soul and saw that his wife had ended her life, he was in immense pain. However, the sorrowful tears could no longer bring back the one who had died. Eventually, Joon Woong understood the reason why Kurion didn't reincarnate but chose to stay as a grim reaper. She kept helping those who wanted to end their lives because she understood that feeling of helplessness. She didn't want anyone to lose their thread of destiny with their loved ones due to despair. Joon Woong then asked the Jade Emperor whether Joon Gil knew about all of this. She said that he had once sealed away his memories of Kurion, and only after that did he reincarnate. But perhaps Kurion's suicide had become a permanent, unhealable wound in his heart. After that incident, Joon Gil carried that emotional scar and worked at Jumadong for hundreds of years. Meanwhile, Kurion's phone displayed the name of the person she least wanted to see. It was Gokjan after reincarnation. In this life, she was a famous Korean celebrity named Yuri. Because of her outspoken nature, she offended quite a few people and had many anti-fans. But there were some anti-fans who seemed to deliberately target Yuri. The next day, Kurion and Joon Woong went to Yuri's company and approached her under the identity of bodyguards. Yuri's company had received an anonymous letter, which included a photo of her and a top executive meeting at a hotel. This left the company unsure how to handle the situation. That day, Yuri had only gone to meet a friend and happened to run into the executive. As a result, they were photographed by paparazzi and falsely accused in published articles. In truth, everything had been orchestrated by someone trying to harm her. Even her best friend had betrayed her. Although Yuri had done nothing wrong, if these negative rumors continued to spread, it would ruin her. Yuri angrily stormed out of the company. At this time, a male artist tried to use the unspoken rules with her. Until now, Yuri had never submitted to any unspoken rules, and because of this, she had offended many people. While waiting for rehearsal, Yuri encountered a girl group in the lounge. She noticed that Park Song-in was deliberately ignoring another group member, so Yuri advised her to take better care of her group mates. But Park Song-in warned Yuri not to meddle in other people's affairs. Backstage, Yuri received a phone call from her father. He threatened that if she didn't give him money, he would accuse her of being unfilial. At that point, Yuri was drained both physically and mentally. So during rehearsal, she collapsed on stage. Joon Woong immediately rushed onto the stage and carried her away. Because she was a celebrity and had recently been surrounded by negative rumors, she didn't dare go to the hospital. Yuri felt utterly helpless but had no one to confide in. Kurion told her that she would always stay by her side and that she would restore Yuri's reputation. Therefore, Yuri had to stay strong. At that moment, two team leaders were sitting and chatting in Joon-gil's office. This time, they had come to the underworld on business. They heard a report stating that team leader Kurion had ended her own life. They didn't understand why the Jade Emperor would allow someone like that to be responsible for saving people who wanted to end their lives. Joon-gil became furious after hearing it. He immediately went to find the Jade Emperor and asked her what exactly his relationship with Kurion had been in their past lives. The Jade Emperor refused to let him see his past memories, but Joon-gil was not willing to accept it. He told her that he would find the answer himself. The guards at the gate followed the Jade Emperor's orders and tried to stop Joon-gil, but no one in Jumadown was able to hold him back. After the male artist tried to use the unspoken rules on Yuri and was rejected, he started thinking of ways to destroy her. He wanted Yuri to lose everything. Park Song-in told him to make Yuri disappear from the entertainment industry. Soo-hyuk said he had already bribed a reporter and that an expose about Yuri would soon be published. He also told Song-in to fabricate a story that Yuri had bullied group members. Kurion's team went to the hotel and obtained the CCTV footage showing that Yuri and the executive had only met by chance. They wanted to restore her reputation, but at that moment, a news article accusing her of stealing someone's husband and bullying group members was published. Her phone showed that Yuri's negative emotional index had reached a dangerous level. She wanted to go to the company to get an explanation, but as soon as she stepped outside, she was surrounded by reporters. Joon Woong immediately took her away. Her mind was now filled with false rumors and the hateful words of anti-fans. These were the negative factors that pushed Yuri to have suicidal thoughts. She opened the car door and ran out. The members of Kurion's team split up and searched for her. At an intersection, Kurion saw her dashing into the street. Kurion snapped her fingers and everything froze. Just as she was about to approach Yuri to save her, Joon-gil suddenly appeared. He presented the contract she had signed when she agreed to become a Grim Reaper. Joon-gil said that from now on, she could not interfere with Yuri's choices. She could only support her from the side. After saying that, he snapped his fingers and time began to move again. The car hit Yuri and she fell right in front of Kurion, exactly like what had happened hundreds of years ago. Kurion could only watch and could do nothing. Kurion was in extreme pain. She wanted to use her own method to punish those who had hurt Yuri. She went to find Park Song-in and beat her up. When Song-in knelt down and begged for mercy, she said she was only following orders. At that moment, Soo-hyuk was drinking with the reporter to celebrate. Kurion suddenly appeared in front of them and beat them both until they passed out on the spot. Kurion had to make them understand the price of hurting Yuri. After that, she went to the house of an anti-fan. Kurion used her power to make all the hateful comments appear on his body. At this point, she had completely lost control. As long as someone had hurt Yuri, they would be beaten and tortured. Even someone who was live streaming was not spared. Kurion suddenly appeared, beat him up, then vanished. Kurion Kurion's actions had violated the rules of Jumadong. The news that a Grim Reaper had caused chaos in the human world was reported to the underworld. A hell inspector named Ha Dae-soo appeared and directly came to arrest Kurion for punishment. Joon Woong heard this and became very worried about her. He suddenly remembered the conversation between her and Joon Gil. Joon Woong recalled that Roon-gu had once said that if someone entered another person's nightmare, they might see the memories that person had forgotten. So Joon Woong went to find Joon Gil and asked him to help Kurion. When he heard what Joon Woong said, he immediately understood the answer he had been seeking was probably hidden in his own nightmare. Joon Gil hurriedly entered his nightmare. In the dream, he saw everything that had happened in the past. Joon Gil witnessed what Kurion had gone through and felt immense pain. The marriage quickly passed, and the unforgettable wounds in the dream pulled him back to hundreds of years ago. After Joon Gil recovered his memories, he realized that Kurion ended her life because of him. Joon Gil regretted it and shed tears, so it turned out he had always been the one to hurt the woman he had loved most. Meanwhile, Joon Woong tried to persuade Kurion to stop, but she had nothing left to lose. Even if she were thrown into a pot of boiling oil, Kurion still wanted to avenge Yuri. Joon Woong used the words she once said to him to persuade her the responsibility of the risk management team was to save lives. If even she herself wasn't doing well, how could she save others? It seemed his words calmed her down. Ryong-gu said that Yuri was gradually recovering. She still had a chance to survive. At that moment, Ha Dae-soo suddenly appeared. He wanted to take Kurion back to the place she belonged, to make her endure the punishment of hellfire and never return to the human world again. But suddenly, Joon Gil, who had regained his memories, appeared in front of her. He absolutely would not let anyone hurt Kurion. Joon Gil fought alone against Ha Dae-soo and his subordinates, but he could not defeat so many people. However, Ha Dae-soo was not an ordinary person. He warned Joon Gil not to stop him from arresting Kurion. Joon Gil was beaten painfully, but he still stood in front of him. Even though he was beaten until he couldn't get up, he still held tightly to Ha Dae-soo's leg, not letting him go. At the same time, Yuri woke up in the hospital and still wanted to end her life. Kurion appeared in front of her and said she was a Grim Reaper. Yuri begged her to take her away from the human world. Seeing her in such pain, Kurion said that in this life, she would not let anyone throw stones at Yuri again. She would clear away all obstacles and restore Yuri's innocence. Kurion told Joon Woong to take good care of Yuri, because in this life, she would be his wife. Kurion told Ryong-gu to bring those who had intentionally spread false rumors to Jumado. In the underworld, Ha Dae-soo was interrogating Joon Gil, asking why he wanted to let Kurion go. He said there was no reason at all. At that moment, the Jade Emperor and the other team leaders came to see Ha Dae-soo. The team leaders all said that Joon Gil really hated the risk management team, and they didn't believe he would save Kurion. The Jade Emperor then told him that because Kurion had ended her life in her past life, her thread of fate had been severed. Even if she were to reincarnate, she could not reconnect her previous fate. Kurion's death had caused Joon Gil such pain that he no longer wanted to live. That pain had been engraved deeply into his soul. Even though he had reincarnated, he still couldn't forget. Meanwhile, Kurion helped clear Yuri's name. She let Yuri's fans gather evidence on Suhya. He would not only be punished in the human world, but also be sent down to hell. As for those who had deliberately made up rumors, they were beaten and locked up in Jumadeong. After they deleted all the posts and publicly apologized to Yuri, they were released. Yuri also returned to the normal course of life. Kurion went to see the Jade Emperor to admit her fault. She accepted any punishment, even if it meant returning to hell. But the Jade Emperor said she didn't need to be punished at all, because Joon Gil had already taken the punishment on her behalf. When Kurion heard the news, she went down to the underworld. The Jade Emperor intended to make an exception and allowed Joon Woong to return to the human world early. After that, Kurion informed Joon Woong that he could reunite with his family soon. After half a year of working together, Joon Woong felt a bit reluctant to part from everyone. Kurion told him that he had worked hard during that time. Right after, she brought him back to the human world. At the hospital, Joon Woong gradually woke up. His mother and younger sister were overjoyed and hugged each other tightly when they saw him awake. After Joon Woong returned to the human world, everything went very smoothly thanks to Jumadeong's support. But it seemed that Joon Woong had brought the habits from working at the risk management team back to the human world. One day after work, he sensed that a colleague was emotionally unstable, so Joon Woong returned to the company. He saw that his colleague was about to do something foolish, so he rushed forward to pull him back. At that moment, Kurion and Rungu also arrived. They stood nearby, watching him counsel his colleague. With just a few sincere words, he managed to save a life. At that time, Joon Gil also appeared. He said Joon Woong had already returned to the human world, yet he was still interfering with Joon Gil's work. Kurion silently looked at him. Although the two of them could no longer restore their previous relationship, being able to meet and work together was perhaps already the best ending. At that moment, Joon Woong turned and asked who the three of them were. Kurion replied that she was a Grim Reaper. Today's drama had ended here. See you again in the next videos.